Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1958, written by JeevesTheRunner. The Blue Bikini Girl in Wild Water Swirls. About 10 years ago, a group of friends and I were whitewater kayaking in the Catskills. One of the group and myself were pretty experienced, and had both worked swiftwater rescue. And we had helmets on, rope bags, the works. This was early spring, and the water was high, fast, and cold, and all the rapids had been upgraded. We were all in neoprene suits. We had passed some tubers in wetsuits, most of them college kids. Not uncommon there. Come across a girl who was absolutely freaking out, standing in the shallows in an eddy, no tube in sight. She's screaming that her friend went under and hasn't come back up. My friend and I go help. I stay in the kayak and he flips and pulls up his cord and goes under. Pops back up with a girl in a bright blue bikini. No idea why I remember the color. I throw him a rope bag. This girl is messed up, bleeding down her face, pale, blue lips, the works. The rest of my group had flagged down a truck. We were in the middle of nowhere, no cell service or anything. Put this girl in a bikini and her friend in the back and sent them to the hospital. We got the name and number of the guy in the pickup, but not the girls. Called the guy that night and he's freaking out. Says he got to the hospital and there wasn't anyone in the bed of the truck. No water, no blood, no two girls. The towels and the makeshift rope litter we had made were there, and the towels were still wet, but nothing else. Guy swears up and down he remembers seeing them in the mirror right before pulling into the hospital. We called local hospitals, the police, the tour company, and everyone. No one had any idea of who we were talking about, and the tour company swears no one got in the water without a wetsuit, and they hadn't lost any tubes that day. Still think about it whenever I'm up that way. Case file 1958. The Blue Bikini Girl in Wild Water Swirls. It is an odd place for this to happen, and everything just coalesced perfectly. You're out in the boondocks pretty much, really far from civilization, no cell phone, but you just flagged down this truck that's there. How lucky. For everyone involved. This is possibly not a glitch though. Maybe the glitch has happened in the first part where everything just came together perfectly to save this woman. As they're getting close to the hospital, they realize, well, there's nothing too wrong, and going in here is going to be expensive. So maybe something like that happened and they just skedaddled before you realized. There are anomalies, like having no water. The towel was wet, but the truck wasn't. That is odd. It does seem like they were there and then just not. Could they have intersected a space-time portal without the car having intersected it? Maybe not, I don't know. So yeah, maybe they ran off to avoid the bill, or maybe something else took hold of them and they phased out. But I think they're still around. The craziest one is that they were just ghosts, and this was her echo reliving that moment where she did in fact die. That is the one that evokes melancholy, for sure. Case file number 1959, written by BlakeDSnake. In a barracks so old was a spirit infinitely cold. I was stationed in Germany from 84 to 86. One night, I had a CQ runner, charge of quarters, basically babysitting duty for the barracks. There were 5 runners, one for each of the 4 floors, plus the basement. We switched floors every 4 hours. It was around 2 a.m. and I was stuck with the basement shift. The basement only had offices and storage rooms. No one lived down there. It was damp and musty, what you'd expect from an old World War II era building. Anyways, it's 2ish and I'm walking back and forth, trying to stay awake. I was counting how many steps it was from one end to the other. Yes, I was that bored. I got to one end of the hall, turned around, and there was this guy standing halfway down the hall. The stairwells are at the end of the building, so there's no way he got past me. He's wearing loose work-type pants, boots, and a white loose tank top and undershirt. He was facing away from me, and all I can see is that his hair is cut in a bowl cut, too long for army standards. I was dumbstruck, literally tried to speak but couldn't make a sound. He just stood there and then he was gone. No poof, just a sort of fade out, but quick. I walk upstairs, forcing myself to be calm. and asked if anyone had gone down to the basement. The guy on the first floor was half asleep, but said he hadn't seen a thing. I went back down to the basement, smoked a cigarette, and stared down the corridor. After about 15 minutes, I got brave enough to walk back down. There was no sign of the guy. I had no idea what I saw. I asked a unit historian about it once, describing the guy's clothes and haircut. He said it sounded like a soldier, which makes sense because our barracks were built in 1938. Anyways, it freaked me out. I've never told anyone the whole story before. Caissons found 1959, in a barrack so old, was a spirit infinitely cold. Okay, I love how you describe that this entity, this man, this echo, this spirit, just faded out. And you were seeing it. It wasn't like a frame split. No. This being manifested into your reality, into our reality, but then phased out. Maybe he couldn't handle the energy requirement to do so. To phase in, I think, requires a lot of energy. And I don't think spirits break the laws of conservation of energy. They still use it, and there's a finite supply. And converting kinetic, heat, etc., potential gravity, so on, into spiritual energy, whatever you want to call that, maybe it's not so easy. Maybe you can only siphon it from human beings with attached souls. And maybe some spirits don't want to do that. But they still linger around for a while. Case file number 1960, written by stupidwithmoniez. A dream of loss and my heart's silent cost. My ex-husband and father of my children passed away earlier this year. We were together for over a decade. About 2 or 3 weeks before he died, I had a dream that his sister called me to tell me that he had passed. I remembered the dream after I woke up. I usually don't, but shook it off as being disturbed by this one, so that's why I retained it. When he passed away from unexpected heart failure on Memorial Day, my ex's sister tried reaching me on Facebook as she lost my number. When she couldn't reach me, she called my daughter. Deja vu doesn't even begin to touch the feelings I had when I returned her phone call. Standing in the living room, pacing back and forth on the phone just like in my dream. I feel sick thinking about it now. My ex was getting increasingly ill in the week or so leading up to his death. He thought it was a bad cold or pneumonia, COVID, etc. Lethargic, shortness of breath, coughing. No one put 2 and 2 together that really his stint was no longer functioning, and he was going into heart failure. It bothers me that I had that dream. What was the point? How could I have known? Even knowing, what could I have done? I haven't seen the point in sharing with family or friends, or how hearing about it could provide them with any sense of relief or comfort. My mom had something similar happen to her as a girl. She told me that she had a dream that she heard a knock on the door, opened it, and her father collapsed. The next day after school, there was a pounding on the door. She opened it, and her father collapsed at her feet. Turns out he had leukemia. Lived until she was 14. My mom doesn't believe in supernatural things, but can't explain this. Caissons found 1960. A dream of loss and my heart's silent cost. Well, I am sorry for your loss, even though he was your ex. It's still, there's a lot of history involved in that is just snuffed out, and that's never something you want to hear. But as for the dream, don't feel guilty. This wasn't someone infusing your mind with a sign, I don't think. I think it was your subconscious pulling that information without anyone else's doing. And even if someone fed it to you, some higher guardian angel, there really was nothing you could do. I mean, who would have a dream like that and think, oh yeah, my ex-husband's gonna die? No. There's no logic to that. There's nothing you could have done, even if you had known. Even if you were there right there, you're not a heart surgeon. There can be signs, but ultimately, as much as we care for other people, we are responsible for ourselves, first and foremost. And us men, we do not like going to the hospital, and if we feel something's wrong, we just say, walk it off. Take a good rest. It'll pass. That is just the mindset of most guys, to be honest, so getting him to go back to the hospital, not an easy thing, no. Now time for the joke of the day. What's green, has 4 legs, and could kill you if it fell out of a tree? A pool table. What the hell is it doing in a tree? I don't know, but very accurate. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.